This is Marketing Over Coffee with Christopher Penn and John Wall.
Good morning. Welcome to Marketing Over Coffee. I'm John Wall. Today we have Christina Garnett with us. The big thing was she was at HubSpot and grew the community there. And she was so famous at that point that she was recruited out of HubSpot. Basically, Brian Halligan stepped down off the mountain with Jerry Garcia's guitar and said, hey, you need to come work with us. So the big news, though, is you have your book. You're here to talk to us about transforming customer brand relationships, use emotional connection to build loyalty on Kogan Page, which is a imprint that we talk to all the time. But Christina, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm never going to get used to having my name and famous used at the same time. Like, that's very weird. I'll take your word for it, but it's weird.
Well, is it? Yeah, I run into this too, because like my family's like, who are you? Nobody. I'm like, well, you know, when I go to a marketing conference, like there's people that want to talk to me, unlike you people. So, it's funny. We're like famous just to a very, very tiny, thin.
The nichest of niches. Yes.
Exactly. It's, you know, the people who understand marketing automation jokes, which is a very tiny.
That's a very small circle.
Exactly. Yeah. That's like when that's not even a visible slice of the pie when you're doing a pie chart. But here we are. So let's talk about the book. Like, at what point were you like, hey, I have to do this? Or did Kogan come hassle you and say, hey, we know we can work with this? How did it go?
I was an English major, so I've always wanted to write a book. I always, like every tragic English major, I was like, I'm going to write the next great American novel. Like that's almost a prerequisite. So I wanted to write a book for a long time. I've written short stories. I've written poetry. I've been a writer my whole life. But I had a dear friend, Jenny Lee Fowler at MIT, who wrote her book through Kogan Page, Organic Social Media. And I was featured in the book. And I also just like pumped her up because I love the book and I also love her. And her publisher was Kogan Page. And so I think during that whole kind of thing, they saw me, did their kind of research on me and came forward and was like, hey, would you be interested in writing a book? Do you have a book inside of you? And I was like, I kind of do, but I'm not really sure like what this looks like. And I had already spoken to someone who was a book agent, a literary agent. So it felt kind of like the universe was telling me to write a book, whether or not how it was going to get written was going to be the question mark. And so did my due diligence, was really thinking about it, wrote my proposal on what I wanted to write about. And a lot of it was learning throughout my career and customer advocacy and community and like actually connecting with people and basically all my work, the through line. And so wrote the proposal, and July 4th of 2024, because their main headquarters is in London. So they don't celebrate Independence Day over there, for those who are shocked. They put all the proposals and they put it in front of like their board to say like what gets approved, what doesn't get approved, what gets a maybe, but maybe needs to be a bit massaged more. And I got my yes. And so they sent me the contract and started writing it pretty feverishly and finished writing it January of last year, and then spent the rest of the year editing it, polishing it, publishing it, promoting it, all the things. And so now it's a living, breathing thing on the internet and in people's hands. It's wild.
Right. Here we go. Now, the last time we had talked to you, you were just ending up at HubSpot because you spun off on your own, your company, where you're a fractional chief customer officer. So how has that gone? I mean, first year in business as you're doing a book.
I love it. I find that I'm very multi-passionate, ADD, whatever you want to call it. And so I kind of thrive when I'm doing multiple things that are rather different. And so it actually really helps me compartmentalize. Like, this is the part of my world that I'm focusing on now versus that. And so it's time consuming, but it's no regrets. It's been amazing. And Pocket CCO has been great. I get to work with really incredible companies, get to work with really wonderful teams, brilliant teams. And it kind of allows me to do work that I really love without a lot of the stuff that I didn't like about corporate. So I kind of get to choose my best of both worlds, which is nice.
Yeah, right, Bill. Well, and I think, and this is something last time we talked, and I'll have a link to the past interview too, but you were talking about how the chief customer officer position is usually neglected by many organizations because if they have the budget, they'll hire a CRO or a CMO. So am I right in saying that the companies that will take on a fractional CCO, they're more forward thinking and they kind of have a better attitude?
Yeah, they do. They also tend to be a bit more proactive versus reactive. And they know that they need to, they see the bigger picture. because a lot of people still think that CX is just a support function, and it absolutely is not. They are not actively realizing that all of these different teams, even if they never talk to each other, even if they never meet, even if they never work on the same campaigns, they're all playing a role in how the customer experiences and engages with that product and that brand. And so it very much is a part of customer experience. And so you need someone who understands how to bring everyone together, how to collectively create, what does this experience need to feel like? What do we want them to know? How do we want them to feel about us? What do we do to even foster that kind of feeling? That is, the brands I work with understand that that is a thing. And they also understand that they probably are not at the size where they would need a full-time person for that, but they know they need someone at the table who will speak to that. And so that's where I get brought in, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah, and then it's the huge benefit of it, because since it's only fractional, getting somebody who's doing this at 3 or 4 other companies gives, you skip the entire learning curve, and you're able to just show up with best practices from day one. Yeah.
Well, you also, a lot of the fluff gets cut, because you're not paying for 40 hours. You're paying for it's basically me, but concentrated. And so they wind up getting a lot more than they would for a lot cheaper. But they know that, here's what we're doing. Here's the efforts. Here's how we're moving the needle. This is what we're doing to bring people together. And so it's been really lovely.
All right, we want to dig into the book. We just have to take a second. Today's episode is brought to you by Fundera, powered by NerdWallet. Running a small business is tough, and when it's time to get a loan, it can feel impossible to find a lender you actually trust. Big banks say no. The internet is full of sketchy offers with sky-high rates and fine print you can barely read. Whether you need help covering payroll, managing cash flow, or investing in growth, you deserve better. That's why we recommend the small business marketplace Fundera, powered by NerdWallet. It's a free, easy-to-use platform that lets you compare real financing offers from trusted lenders all in one place. What I like is you don't need perfect credit to get started. There's no spam, no bait and switch, just personalized options that fit your business needs. Oh, there's so many times I could have used this in my startup adventures. And here's the best part. For a limited time, when you visit nerdwallet.com/MOC and fill out the no obligation form, you'll get VIP treatment and talk with a real person who knows the ins and outs of small business lending. Don't risk your business on unreliable lenders. Go to nerdwallet.com/MOC to find the funding you deserve. Fundera Incorporated, NMLS ID number 1240038. Yeah, cash flow problems are a tremendous headache. Anything you can do to get through it quickly will make your life better. Again, check out Fundera by NerdWallet, and we thank them for their support of the show. Okay, so you've got the book. I kind of got the 3 big ideas. One is you're talking about the customer and brand relationship, how the customer is tied to the brand, building a community, and then overcoming challenges. But there's a ton of stuff in the customer brand relationship section. But before I dive in too, have I got that right? Is that the way to frame this?
Yes. The first, it's in 3 parts. The first part is, here's everything that has to do with building that relationship, and a lot of things that I don't find anyone's really an expert on. That's why I pulled so many experts into the book. And so you have people talking about storytelling and voice of the customer and social media and NPS. And it's all of these things. And then second, like you said, is community. I think community is the silo killer. That's how we get everyone together. That's how we build this roundtable essentially, so that we can make sure that the customer is taken care of. And then, like you said, what happens when things change or something bad happens and now you have to pivot or you have to adapt or you have to react in some sort of way? What does that look like?
All right. And I love the idea of brandom. You talk about creating fans, and I just kind of have this problem of, I think people that are following a certain band or something, that's one type of fandom, but being a fan of a company is different. So talk to us about brandom and how this kind of makes that clear as far as how it works for business.
Yeah. So I find that because we're all human, it's still going to be the same mechanics in your brain that make you follow that band across the country and want to buy all their merch and have it be your entire personality. A lot of that is the same mechanic that's going to have you do that for a brand. And so it's harder for a brand to create it, but it absolutely can. And a lot of what you wind up seeing is that it's around the cult of personality. So for example, Apple and Tesla are probably the best examples of brandoms can absolutely exist. You have Apple fanboys who are going to buy, like they're going to stand in line. They're going to get the new phone every single time. They're going to show up. If something bad happens, they're going to defend it. Same thing with Tesla. It's going to be their entire personality. They're going to show up. It doesn't matter if something is bad is written about them in a headline. They're going to show up in the comment section en masse. The brandoms exist. They're just harder to create. And I find that a lot of companies, they see that as an end game. Like creating a brandom is absolutely end goal. Like they want a rabid fan base. They want a parasocial relationship where their customers love them. It's not even like they would never even contemplate leaving because like that would destroy their entire life. They wrap their identity and who they are around that brand. It's all of these things. The problem for me is that brands don't do what is necessary in order to foster that. They want the love, they want the cult status, but they're not doing the behaviors that it requires to actually make that a thing. And so a lot of that is you need to start treating people like people, and you need to be learning behavioral psychology and understanding how people think and feel about things and how we're making decisions. Like you need to be reading, thinking fast and thinking slow. Like you need to be thinking about system 1 and system 2 thinking and cognitive bias, and like all of these things play such a pivotal role in how marketers do their job, even when marketers don't realize what they're tapping into. Like so much of what we talk about is like, oh, this is a trend. And I was like, well, actually, that's not a trend. That is a byproduct of this specific behavioral psychology principle that is 200 years old. Like it's that stuff. But so it's fascinating to me. I'm a big fan of the concept of fandom, the concept of brandom. But I think that more people need to actually do the work to figure out what that actually entails, instead of like, we're going to build a community or we're going to set up a newsletter. And it's just like, it's so much more than that.
Okay. And we have to ask you about social media monitoring and what's going on. I mean, this is an area where you are an expert and have done the hard work of getting the brands to be effective in there. And in fact, we won't go into the whole thing. The book has a 9-step plan. So if you have no idea what you're doing, you can just go to this chapter and at least get on the rails and get pointed in the right direction. But talk to us about what's going on now and just the state of the world with social, and what are your thoughts?
I think it is a very wild place. I think what we are seeing is the culmination of lack of regulation in AI, lack of regulation in social media, complete and utter distrust in privacy across the world. I think what we are seeing is the culmination of a lot of, we will fix this we'll come to this bridge when we get there. Like all the bridges are coming at the same time now because we kind of like pushed aside the work. I think it's very interesting, but not surprising what's happening with TikTok. I think it's very interesting what's happening with Claudebot or whatever. Like there's that social media for AI agents. And depending on who you ask, it's either this apocalyptic Black Mirror, they're skynetting through the chat basically, and just like determining how they're going to destroy us and sue us and everything else as humans. Or this is all like just parroting, and they know that we're screenshotting this and having a day. Like it's all very weird. I had a friend who was talking to me yesterday, and she was like, how are you doing? And I was like, I'm just in a really poorly written dystopian novel. How are you? I want H.G. Wells to show up and be like, I'll take over. I'll take the wheel. Not gonna be great, but it's gonna be better written. Like we're just gonna fix it.
I know, right? That is funny. I've never thought of it that way, but it's like, it's a bad story too. It's like, no, the hero doesn't get thrown into a wood chipper. Like what kind of book is this? This is not how this works.
It was also kind of sweeps. So I can say this. I actually uninstalled TikTok because I was in the comment section not in the comment section. I was in a DM with a friend and we were talking, and I said, I'm in 1984, but it's written by an idiot, and they're putting all the plot points back to back. And that got censored on TikTok. It said like this, we can't show this comment because it goes against community guidelines. And I was like, you have 1984 flag, don't you? Like that was my only thought. And I was like, because like stupid is not, I've seen worse on TikTok than someone call somebody stupid. So I'm sure that's not the flag. But it's that sort of thing. So it's very interesting. I think that what we are going to see though is that humanity is going to win out, because we need that. Like the ancestral need for community isn't going to go anywhere. If anything, it's going to be stronger. I think as AI advances, we're seeing more tech parity. which means that the human element is what's going to be the advantageous moat. Like that's going to be the move. Like how can you differentiate yourself? It's going to be your people stack, not your tech stack, because everyone can basically add this like LLM hose to their tech stack, and now everything is able to do all these other things. But it's the human element that's actually going to differentiate people now. And I think some brands are starting to pick up on that. I think others are going to pick up on it later.
Okay. And you did mention that we might as well touch this while we're here too, this idea of dead internet, people talking about the fact that, well, yeah, here's the corpus of the thing, but 98% of it is just slop that's been generated. Is that affecting your thinking at all on how you do things? Or because in my mind, I'm just like, that's irrelevant. Like we just there's the human stuff that I touch every day and who cares what else is out there? But is there a better way to do that?
I would be disingenuous if I didn't say it didn't influence my behavior on the internet. I would absolutely be disingenuous. I think for me, what it does is it conditions me to go to where my people are. So I think that's why I think the dead internet theory is not really a theory anymore. But I think what it does is it conditions humans to go back to our ancestral behavior, which is I'm going to go to my community, I'm going to go to my people, I'm going to want more in-person experiences. I'm going to want my group chats. I'm going to want to go where I know what real is. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think that's why we are going back to analog. I think that's why we are seeing like really super polished hauls, and influencers are not getting the traction they used to get. We know what fake looks like, and we are proactively rejecting it to go towards messy, towards real, towards human. I think that we're going to continue to see that.
Yeah, and I feel that things are moving in a better direction because everyone is suspicious now. I think there was too much honest trusting of everything before, and the fact that now anything can be fake does make people more. And I think it's an opportunity for people like yourself who have built an audience and can be trusted. People still know that, hey, if I've got a question on how this technology works, if I go look in your feed, that's going to be your actual thoughts on this thing and not something that's just spun up out of the rest of the chum around the internet.
Well, that's what's been weird. Like I've probably turned down over 30 different AI brand deals. Because those are the only deals that I get now. And I'll get like LinkedIn is like, hey, we'd love for you to do this, and we'd love for you to do that. And I was like, I did one. And it's because I liked the product and I liked their values. And their whole thing was basically adding the AI so that it basically had your tech stack talking to each other, so that you would have one central place of truth where you could ask questions. And its sole purpose was to enable the support teams to do a better job. They were very anti-replacement. And I was like, okay, we are talking the same language. Good. But like all the others, I was like, just saying like, here's a check. This is AI. I'm like, you're gonna have to do better than that. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Okay. And then building a community is you figure out what's going on and then you start building the community. The same deal. The book has everything you need to know from, staging it to doing beta testing to actually going live and doing the thing. But and especially having, done the book now, what is your thought on that? Has your opinion changed on community building, or what's the latest that you're thinking about with that?
I think community building is always going to be important. I think that this year already, like we literally just survived January, but I can already say that like the biggest takeaway for January is community is what's going to save us. Like we need our neighbors and we need to take care of each other and we need to look out. So I think that's really important. I think the problem with community is that it's been commodified. And so it's just one more product to sell. It's just one more thing to push out. And so a lot of what makes community great has been kind of disregarded because it doesn't fit nicely in a dashboard or a checklist. And so I know a lot of people who are in the community space who were just really burned out. And it's because like I had like a come to Jesus meeting with one of them because they were having a bad time. And I was like, they started like second guessing themselves and like their community work. And I had to say like, it's not that you're doing bad work. It's that they are shifting what they think community is. And that's not what it is. And so you are judging your value based on essentially having community cosplay as something else. And so that's what it is. And I say, so what you need to do is you need to figure out like, if this is what they want that community to do, how can you make the community be true to itself in a way that it will lead to those metrics? So the metrics aren't the goal. but by doing the work really well, you can make the path for like how that creates behaviors that will translate to metrics that they want, because that's a lot of the big problem with community right now, is that a lot of businesses are struggling, and it's because you've turned community into something it's not, and now it's not working the way you wanted it to, because that's not how community works.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, we could really dig into that. It's beyond the scope of the show, but that does make sense as far as, because it's a dynamic thing, right? The opinion changes, and you do have to be able to adapt to it, because you could just get painted into a corner. Okay, and overcoming the challenges. When I saw that on the list, I was like, well, that's, a part of business being done. But again, the same deal. You've got some actionable stuff as far as, okay, how do you deal with a merger? How do you deal with leadership changes? How do you deal with rebranding? And just those 3 alone, I was like, that pays for the cost of the book right there. Like, if you have to go through any one of those things, any kind of help you can get is just going to save your life and take the stress out of your day. But yeah, what made you, add that? Is it just because it's such a huge part of the work? Like, people talk a lot about the planning and the building, but it's the day-to-day that's the real effort, or what went into that?
I think for me, I wanted to have a very clear perspective of what these relationships look like and how these relationships can break. Because you can do a really good job of having these customers love you, build around you, like basically be the biggest advocate team you could ever imagine. But you could still lose your way or make moves that completely, like, I've watched brands destroy themselves. I've watched brands go from beloved to hated to like no one cares. And so I think that there needs to be a clear through line of, here's how you build these relationships, but here's how you rebuild them if something happens, because something is going to happen. Like, nobody's perfect. Maybe the product has an issue. Maybe there's a data hack. Like, you didn't hack your system on purpose, but you've still compromised your customers. How are you going to handle that? Really thinking about that. What does that look like? And then just in the scope of things, there's a lot of M&A happening right now, especially in the marketing world. If you look at the agency world, like, the VCs are coming for agency world. And so when we think of like, what does that look like, and how does that affect brand reputation, customer and client reputation, like all those things, it's important. And then also you factor in AI. Like, there's a lot of things that are completely changing how we talk to each other and how we relate to each other and how we feel about brands. And so it's important of whether or not we are just starting our relationship with our customers, or we're building it or fixing it or whatever, to understand that it is an ongoing process. It is a never ending cycle, just like a normal relationship. There are some people in your life that you can pick up the phone and haven't talked to them for 3 years, and you start like nothing happened. And you have customers that are just like that. But you also have customers who, they're going to be like, she feels different. She feels a bit more distant. She doesn't call me anymore. She only shows up when she wants something. Like, we're human. At the end of the day, we're all human, whether we are consumers, whether we are bosses, whether we are all these things. And so I hope that the book really goes to the heart of, we have to remember that we're human. We have to remember that we are building these relationships, and what does that look like? And what does it take to build them, to fix them, to repair them, to just acknowledge that it's tough.
Yeah, it's funny. There was some stuff from one of Covey's team that I always fall back to that I love it, because they talk about how relationships are like bank accounts, and that, if you've put the work in, that money is there and you can go back. But there's also a thing where, as people get closer to you, you do have to have regular communication. You, like, if you show up after 3 years for your closest friends, that's actually going to be a problem, and it's a different approach for that. So, but yeah, no, and I love, again, all the stuff in there is solid. This book it is a great resource. If you're in the middle of this, it's a perfect map to, keep you out of something, especially, burning your brand to the ground. We do see that so often. And it's just like, man, if these people only did this or that. All right. We always talk about what's going on in the world of Marvel and entertainment, because we have a lot of stuff as far as movies, music. The big one is, what are you thinking about Avengers and everything that's going on with the whole world there? Are you waiting for Doctor Doom to show up at the end of the year, or what's your take?
Okay. So there's a lot. I've heard rumors about what's happening on Doomsday. If they're able to pull off what is supposed to be at the beginning, it's going to be insanely good. I'm very excited, but it's also like, it's going to have to be so well crafted, because there's so many things that have to work that it can be messy really fast. But I also know that Marvel knows they can't get this wrong. So that gives me hope. I do have concerns, because I've watched I've watched them, not Marvel specifically, but Marvel under Sony and all this other stuff and Fox. I've watched them destroy the Dark Phoenix Jean Grey story twice. I hated Multiverse of Madness and what they did to Wanda. I have so many thoughts. I could write my PhD and like how they need to take care of redheaded OP comic book heroes better. Like that could be my PhD. PhD in nerddom. I'm concerned. There's certain things I don't like. I am concerned that I didn't care for Fantastic Four.
Oh, really?
I loved Sue Storm. I love Silver Surfer. I thought Galactus looked great, but I thought he was wasted. I thought Pedro Pascal was not a good. I didn't think he was a good Reed Richards. I thought Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm were completely wasted. Ben Grimm specifically was wasted, in my opinion. He just kind of sat there and they did a clobber in time. And I'm comparing that to Ben Grimm, like in the 90s version with Ben Grimm picking up his wedding ring off the pavement and he can't pick it up. And that literally made me cry. Like I love Ben Grimm. And like there was nothing there. Johnny Storm basically is listening to like Alien vinyls and flirting with Silver Surfer, and that's like his entire personality. He does nothing else. They're trying to clothesline Galactus into a black hole. For those who didn't like, that's the thing. They're trying to clothesline him into a black hole. So I didn't like that. For Dr. Doom, I think Robert Downey Jr. will do a great job. I understand where they're going with that. My biggest concern is that is it the children's story, the children's quest, the children's whatever, it's called the children's something, where Wanda's kids go to find her. And they find her, but she's like shacked up with Dr. Doom and she had forgotten who she was and he's trying to steal her powers. And if Kevin Feige can hear this, I do not want Wanda to be dating Doom. I don't care what you have to do instead. I will watch Multiverse of Madness on repeat in exchange for you not doing that. Like, please don't give me that storyline. I love Wanda. She deserves better. I don't want it. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. I did like Thunderbolts. I thought Thunderbolts was beautiful. Thunderbolts for me was if Marvel did Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Okay.
It was beautiful. It was depressing, but it was beautiful. It was so, so well done. Yeah, there's a lot of fan casts I want. I didn't get excited about any of the trailers for Doomsday, like none of them, which was kind of sad. I think he's going to go after all the kids. That's what it feels like. Everyone has a kid or a baby.
Right. Easy targets.
So I think he's going after all the kids. I think that's how Wanda gets involved. I want Storm and Jean Grey. I don't like Peggy Carter. I need Marvel to stop trying to make Peggy Carter a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts.
No, this is what we came for here, to hear the inside take. Because there's a lot going on. It's just the biggest one for me is just that Endgame was so huge because there was this huge giant stack of movies that led up to it that put all the pieces into motion. And there's a ton of pieces in motion for Doomsday, and I don't know if the same foundation is there. So it's going to be really
I don't think it is.
Yeah, well,
no, I think that's why they're relying on I think that's why they're relying on nostalgia to get you there.
To pull you through.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting year as far as how that comes together and where this goes. And I guess I'm also like, where's the rest of Into the Spider-Verse? That's a question.
Oh, I want that so badly. Like I need them to nail that, because if they stick the landing for the third one, then that will be added to my list of top trilogies.
Yeah, right. A killer trilogy. Well, because they did pull out all the stops. I was there with my jaw open at the end of the second. I was just like, I can't believe they put so many pieces in the air.
They did it. They did an amazing job. They were absolutely fantastic, and I love that. And I want Miles. I want Miles in the MCU. I think it's time.
Yeah, he's just the best of the best as far as I'm concerned. That character is just that. And don't even get me started on Spider-Gwen. I could, that's like best designed hero of all time. Almost. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, they have the guy from, I can't remember his name, but the guy from Stranger Things, he had a video and it was him doing like gymnastics. And I was like, that's Miles, make it Miles. And then Sadie Sink is in the new Spider-Man. And I've heard rumors like that's basically like that could be Miles and Spider-Gwen right there. Like just the two of them, just like copy paste, put it in the MCU. I'll be totally happy. I love them together. But there's rumors that there's a few rumors of what she's going to be. The one of them I think it's a villain, but I think it's too deep a cut for them to do for her. But I heard another rumor that she was going to be, I forget which one, but she was going to be Scott and Jean's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. But she's so absurdly talented. So I'm excited for her to be in it. I hope he's in it as Miles. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can go deeper, but what we'll do is wrap up the regular show. And I will put it as bonus content at the end for the outtakes, so the rest of the world doesn't have to hang on to it. The book is Transforming Customer Brand Relationships. Use emotional connection to build loyalty. We've got a link to that in the show notes. You can get a copy of it at wherever finer books are sold. You can sign up for the Marketing Over Coffee text line at 617-812-5494. And of course, sign up for the newsletter at marketingovercoffee.com. That's going to do it for us for today. Christina, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
That'll do it for this week. So until next week, enjoy the coffee.
You've been listening to Marketing Over Coffee. Christopher Penn blogs at christopherspenn.com. Read more from John J. Wall at jw5150.com. The Marketing Over Coffee theme song is called Mellow G by Funk Masters, and you can find it at Music Alley from Mevio, or follow the link in our show notes.
All right, so that's that. All right. It's interesting to me that you hated Fantastic. The one that I just...
well, hate's too strong of a word, but I didn't like it.
Well, the thing for me was that I thought that's the best to date as far as the Galactus story. Like seeing him...
Yes, but the bar was in hell.
Yes, this is... yeah, I will...
I agree with you, but it's because everything compared is like...
was horrible.
bad.
Yeah, right. Because literally my first Fantastic Four story was that Kirby Galactus story.
Yeah.
Him stomping through the city and them saving him. So, all right. So yeah, I can get that. Scarlet Witch in the comics just gets abused all the time. That's just
and I love her, but I feel like I was talking to somebody about this because they know that Juan is my person, and they were talking about what was the problem with multiverse. And I said, well, if we can go back to it, the problem is that they put the cart before the horse. You're basically having Wanda go crazy, but you're doing it without all of the things that made her crazy. So it's giving Khaleesi at the last season of Game of Thrones, where it's like, oh, well, she heard the bell and she went crazy. And it's like, you could have gotten there, but you had to earn it, and you didn't write that story. So she just looks like she lost her mind for no reason. Same thing with Wanda. So yes, she loses her kids, but if you don't understand everything that it took to create the kids, which they didn't really tell as well, because everyone's wanting Mephisto. Mephisto doesn't show up until Ironheart, but it was actually Mephisto's magic that created the kids. And then they were like, well, why would she go after them, but she wouldn't go after her husband? And it's all these things. And I was like, these are all valid questions, but this is not Wanda's fault. This is the creator's fault for not actively telling that. And then the fact that, so I had to explain this to someone. I was like, so you have the Illuminati thing, which I didn't like because it's clearly fan service and it wastes a lot of time for stuff that we didn't need. Meanwhile, because they could not make her Magneto's daughter, this was the person who did not know her whole storyline. And I was like, so Wanda's Magneto's daughter. She goes crazy. Magneto and his people cannot do anything about it. So he basically goes to Professor X and is begging him to fight her and subdue her. And I said, but then she gets to a point where she says no more mutants. They all come, she basically has the entire mutant world come after her, and she says no more mutants. And because she can change reality, she boops them. And I said, so you don't see any of that. And I said, so what you get is her basically clicking Professor X's neck as the Illuminati. And that's about as much of that storyline as you actually get, which is a disservice. And then you realize that she's a good person. She's just crazy. And she's wondering why she doesn't get the second and third chances like other people do, which is valid. And then she realizes that no one can stop her. She has to kill herself. The only person who can stop her is herself. So she throws the thing on herself. But then there was a TikToker. He looks like he's 12. He might be 90 years old, but he looks like he's 12. It's Soups or something. And he meant on this entire tear when it came out and was like, I don't see how you can be a Wanda fan. And I was like, I'm going to block you because felonies are felonies. I'm just going to block you. But it was just that's what you get when people who don't know the story and don't know these characters. And then they're like, oh, well, this is canon. So she's just a bad person. It's you have no idea. You don't understand this character. So I'm worried about that. I'm worried about what they're going to do with, I want them to have Scott be strong. And it looks like they finally figured out what Scott Summers is after forever. And I'm glad about that. I'm also worried about Wolverine. Like Wolverine has this gravitational pull that I like Wolverine. I think Hugh Jackman's great, but like the biggest problem with the X-Men movies was that they made everything about him. And so every other character suffered. Like Scott Summers is just a simp who's mad that his girlfriend is like looking across the room at Wolverine. And I was like, that is Scott Summers. Like put some respect on his name. Jean Grey doesn't like do half of her stuff because and then she like gets mad and has to be skewered.
Right.
It's very weird. I'm very excited about the possibility of them fixing it, but I don't have the faith. And so I had to explain to her, and I was like, I love Dark Phoenix. I love that whole saga. And I said, but like when Patton Oswalt did the Parks and Rec, like I'm going to do the Boba Fett, like filibuster. And I was like, I could do the Dark Phoenix saga filibuster. And so I'm worried that they're going to mess it up again. And there's just too much going on.
I guess I would feel better if they were like, look, we're going to let all the Gen 1 people that have left stay away to make space for all this X-Men stuff like that. It seems like if you're going to now pull back Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth and like all these other people too, as you're rolling in this other stuff. Yeah. Unless it's a 5-hour Snyder cut, of the movie, then maybe that would be a thing, but a lot of moving parts.
Well, also they've gotten to a point where they've built so much that now they're having the same problems that comic books have, which is I can't read every run. So I'm going to focus on my favorite characters and I'm going to read their runs. And then if there's a massive crossover event, I'll get that one. And so that's what I don't think Marvel's figured that out. Like you now have so many characters and so many different projects that people are only going to pay attention to their people. And then if there's a crossover, they're going to do it. So like, for example, I'm a massive Daredevil fan. Wasn't before the show. I thought the Ben Affleck movie was horrible.
Right.
I never read those comics, never did anything. But the Netflix show and the Marvel show now, I absolutely adore Daredevil. So like, that's going to be one of the runs I pay attention to. Like I'm going to pay attention, and I love Jessica Jones. I love all of them except for Iron Fist. Iron Fist was horrible. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to those are the runs I'm going to pay attention to. And I'm going to always pay attention to Spider-Man. And I'm going to pay attention to Wanda. But like, I don't know if I need anything else.
Right. That's totally, because it's funny you just hit that point where it's so much, because like I love that run of Daredevil, but I'm just like, there's just not enough hours in the day for me to watch Iron Fist and Power Man, and
you can't. There's not enough time. Yeah. There's not enough time. And so you wind up choosing what you care about. And then you're like, there'll be a YouTube video that will explain what I need to know. I'll go to Emergency Awesome and see Charlie, and he'll explain what I missed, and I'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. No, it's Wikipedia summaries are a huge, huge tool.
Or like the fandom wikis. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, and especially because they don't miss stuff either. They're like, oh, you'll notice this or that or whatever, and you get to the thing. But
I think that's where we're at. And I don't think Marvel has figured out that like, you are now seeing the exact same comic book behaviors.
The only thing that's interesting, though, to me that is funny is so much of the Wanda stuff is because in the comics, you'd have all these guys doing like 10 or 12 issue runs. And it was almost a game of like, how horrible can I make this bag of trash before I throw it over to the wall to the next guy? And so the next guy spends 4 issues like, explaining why the hell that all happened. But like, you can't do that in a movie. Like that just doesn't work at all. Yeah. I mean,
I think the one thing, and I don't know how deeply involved he's in it, but I know he's been interviewed a few times. So I know that he's involved in some way, but like Chris Claremont has been interviewed about Doomsday. Cause like with the X-Men coming in and stuff, and he's like made comments. And so I'm just like, keep that man close.
Yeah. Right.
Give him whatever he asked for. I trust him. Yeah, let him do what he needs to do.
If he's okay with it, we're in good hands.
Yeah, I feel like infinitely better that he's involved. And I was like, okay, that gives me a lot of hope. Just like keep that man well fed, give him whatever he asks for. Right. Just let Claremont have whatever he wants. But yeah.
Somebody who knows what the deal is. All right. All right. I have to be respectful of your time with this.
No, you're fine. You're fine. But you know me, I could talk about Marvel forever. So
I know. Well, it's just infinitely fascinating. There's the whole, it's just the whole, people don't get that. Like there was like 50 years of writing and stuff. And then these movies started happening. And so they had never before, I think there's been anything like that where like they knew that these 8 stories here have sold 50 million graphic novels. Like we know this story will deliver. Like you'd have to be a moron to miss with this. And, but now, and so that's where that all came from and ran. But all right. Yeah. Like we didn't even get into the meat of New Motion.
You're fine. It's all good. So
so you're working with them. Things are going all right. They're doing some stuff though with getting into search results for LLMs.
Yes. So the team works with Webflow as a client of ours. And so they have this really cool campaign that they just dropped called AI Guy. And so basically it's the opportunity for them to showcase kind of what it, like in a funny, humorous way, what it looks like when you do not have your website and your brand set up for AEO. And instead, they're just kind of pulling random things off the internet, thinking that that's what it is. And so it's a really cute spot. The team, the Webflow team's brilliant. The New Motion production team and strategy team working on it had a really great time. And so really, really cool.
All right, cool. So I'll dig into more because we're doing stuff with that too. We've got workshops and stuff that have been running. So there's a bunch of stuff on that front.
If you want me to connect you with the Webflow team, I'm happy to connect you with any of them. They're really great.
Yeah. Feel free to just throw an intro because it's good. It's always good for me to like start planting the seeds so that I'm not like on Thursday, like, holy crap, what are we running tomorrow?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can send an email after this.